Fantastic. Okay, there we go. So I just realized that I had not been recording, so this and this will not appear in the final recording, which you can access later. But basically what we're saying here is that we're going to see the simple past as something that is more specific, and we're going to see the present perfect as something a little less specific. Okay? Let's continue now that we've said that. Let's continue with these questions here. Let's answer each question and then discuss the meanings of the verb tenses in italics. Okay, so these are the verbs here. All of these verbs talk about past time, but the verb in A is different from the other three verbs. What is the difference? I'm going to read the sentences. I'm going to highlight the verbs. So sentence A says, I have had several bicycles in my lifetime. B, I had a red bicycle when I was in elementary school. C, I had a blue bicycle when I was a teenager. And D, I had a green bicycle when I lived and worked in Hong Kong. So in sentences B, C, and D, we use the same verb had. And in sentence A, we use have had. Is there any difference that we can gather, that we can understand or imply from using this different verb? Basically, what is the difference in the context of these sentences?
Number one is in present simple.
Simple or
Perfect.
there you go. So this is in the present perfect, yes, because we're using have and we're using the main verb had. But rather than just identifying the tense by noticing the verbs, let's see what these sentences mean. Vamos a seguir pensando en specific and unspecific, okay? Remember that simple past would be specific and present perfect would be unspecific. So let's take, ya que sabemos que esta es present perfect and we know it's supposed to be non-specific, let's see. I have had several bicycles in my lifetime. So we know que a través de la vida entera de esta persona, they've had many bicycles. It doesn't specify how many bicycles. It doesn't specify when he had them. Like, let's say I had this one when I was in this age or this other one when I was at a different age. So this is completely unspecific. Versus, let's take a look at the next three. I had a red bicycle when I was in elementary school. This one is very specific. It specifies the color of the bicycle and it specifies when you had it. So this person had this bicycle during elementary school. And just by the verb alone, had, we can kind of identify that he no longer has this bicycle. Sentence C, I had a blue bicycle when I was a teenager. Once again, we're specifying the color of the bicycle and we're specifying when it happened. And finally, for sentence D, I had a green bicycle when I lived and worked in Hong Kong. When I lived and worked in Hong Kong. Okay. Once again, we're specifying the color of the bicycle and we're specifying at what point in time, even though it doesn't say like from the ages of 24 to 36, but it is a little bit more specific than just saying I've had many bicycles in my entire life. Okay, let's keep that idea in mind of specificity as in B, C, and D versus non-specificity, okay? Number two, what are the differences in the ideas that these verb tenses express? Basically, what is the difference that is implied with these sentences? Sentence E, I had a wonderful bicycle last year. F, I've had many wonderful bicycles. What can we understand that's different about these sentences?
Que una especifica tiempo y otra no.
Could you repeat that? Que parece que se me entrecortó un poquito.
Que una especifica tiempo y la otra no.
Well, okay, yeah, that is true. This does specify time porque si te dice last year. Okay, that's good. And of course, si te fijas, el verbo it's had, which would make it simple past, which is good. And this one also does not specify anything about the bicycles. It doesn't specify anything about when you've had them. Me estoy quedando sin carga, 1 second. Okay. ¿Qué estaba diciendo? Okay, so it doesn't specify anything about the bicycles when you've had them. It just specifies that you've had any random amount of bicycles and they were all good. This specifies that you had a really good bicycle last year. This also implies that you don't have it anymore. But yes, dejándonos llevar, this would be the simple past, and F would be present perfect. Number 3, what are the differences in the ideas the verb tenses express? I don't like this question. It's phrased strangely. But anyways, once again, what is the difference that is implied between these two sentences? G, Anne had a red bike for 2 years. And H, Sue has had a red bike for 2 years. We're talking about a red bike, and we're talking about 2 years. So there is specificity there. We're talking about different people now. Really, the bigger difference is between had and has had. Does anybody know what the difference implies? Do these sentences mean the same thing? Or is there a little difference between Anne and Sue's ownership of these bicycles?
Dicen prácticamente lo mismo. Bueno, pero con diferentes dueños.
Ok, vamos a pensarlo en español. So, vamos a traducir. Anne had a red bike for 2
Una
years.
tuvo y la otra tiene.
Está cerquita. So, Anne
Yo creo
tuvo.
que la
Ajá.
primera de has lo que dice es como que ella tenía una bicicleta roja y la otra dice ella ha tenido bicicleta roja, pues, no sé, creo que es.
Exactly right. Vamos a analizar eso mismito en español entonces. Had sería tenía o tuvo y has had significa ha tenido. ¿Okay? En español, ¿cuál sería la diferencia entre tenía versus ha tenido? Do they mean the same thing or is there something different?
Que pues ella tenía, pues ya no tiene. Y ha tenido, puede que la tenga.
Exactly right. So exactly right. En este caso, had implies that she had it at some point and she doesn't have it anymore. En el caso de Sue, she has had a red bike for 2 years. So it implies that she's had it for this amount of time, but she still has it now. So Anne tiene la bicicleta, Sue no la tiene. Perdóname, al revés. Anne no tiene la bicicleta y Sue sí la tiene todavía. Okay? So even though excuse me, even though there is a specificity of time, there is a concept of ownership that is told just by looking at the verbs. Let's take a look at number 4, which is the last one de esta parte. Basically, who is still alive and who is dead? In his lifetime, Uncle Alex had several red bicycles. In his lifetime, Grandpa has had several red bicycles. It's basically the same thing, just like in the previous sentence. But now, this is implying not just ownership, but existence itself. So, ¿quién está vivo, quién está muerto? ¿Quién me dice?
Está muerto Uncle Alex.
There you go. Porque el verbo dice had. Mi tío Alex tuvo. varias bicicletas. Versus in the second one, which is J, mi abuelo ha tenido varias bicicletas. Dice roja, but it doesn't matter. So yes, this implies that your grandpa is still alive and he still owns several red bicycles. Y aquí implica Uncle Alex, que en paz descanse, que tuvo varias bicicletas. Maybe grandpa la heredó de Uncle Alex when he passed. I don't know. This got sad, so I'm going to keep going. So let's keep looking at specific versus unspecific. Let's take a look at each verb that is italicized. So aquí, okay. Is it simple past or present perfect? Check the box that describes whether the verb expresses something that happened at a specific or not specific time. Vamos a ver esto con un poquito más calma, porque those instructions are kind of confusing. So ya tienen dos regaladas, which is what I highlighted here. We have sentence 1, Miss Parker has been in Tokyo many times. We know it's present perfect because it says so right there, but we can identify it being in the present perfect because it has these two verbs. Usa el has y usa el verb que esté, el main verb que tiene, que termina con en, which is basically its past participle. But apart from that, apart from identifying it as present perfect, we see something here. This says that this is unspecified. So it says Miss Parker has been in Tokyo many times. No te dice that she was there last week. It doesn't say that she was there last month. It doesn't say that she was there from May until August. It just says that she's been there many times. So this is unspecific and it is present perfect. Sentence 2 says Miss Parker was in Tokyo last week. Dejándonos llevar del verbo, which is just was, which is a past form of the be verb. We know that this is the simple past. Now this says this is specified time in the past. Why? Because it says last week. So en este caso, Miss Parker, we know that she travels to Tokyo often. Ya quisiera yo tener tanto chavo. And Miss Parker was in Tokyo just last week. This specificity plus this verb tells us that this is simple past. And this non-specificity plus this verb tells us this is present perfect. Okay? Basically, what you're going to do now is you're going to read these sentences and tell me whether or not this is specific or non-specific. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes. I'll be right back. Vengo ahora. So keep looking at these sentences and identify them as specific or non-specific. Y vuelvo un momentito. Okay, guys. So, who can tell me number 3? Is it specific or unspecified?
Unspecified.
Okay, I've met Kay's husband. He's a nice guy. That is true. Number 4.
Is that specified?
Specified.
Okay, exactly, because it says last week. Okay, let's keep going with number 5.
Specified.
Okay, Mr. White was in the hospital 3 times last month, so boom. Number 6, Mr. White has been in the hospital many times.
Unspecified.
Because it doesn't say when. I like to travel. I've been to more than 30 foreign countries.
Unspecified.
Number 8, I was in Morocco in 2008.
Specified.
Specified.
Benita has never been to Morocco.
Unspecified.
And Benita wasn't in Morocco when I was there in 2008.
Specified.
Okay, so let me just close this. There you go. So we have a variety of specified and specified and unspecified sentences here. Let's look at the verbs to see whether or not they're simple past or present perfect. So this one, number 3, it says it's unspecific. And unspecific, we've been seeing that as the present perfect this whole time. Let's see if that is true. So I've met Kay's husband. He is a nice guy. We're using a contraction, but we're still using have and met. So this would be perfect. Number 4, we're saying this is specific. Sorry, se me trabó la lengua. I met Kay's husband at a party last week. So we're saying this is specific because it says last week, and we're using a verb that is simple. So this is correct as well. Is there any discrepancy between specific? No me muerdas, sushi. Okay, go. Is there any discrepancies between the specificity and the tense, or are all of these specific sentences in the simple past? Are all of these unspecific sentences in the present perfect? Okay, just a cursory glance at the check mark and the verbs, and at least I know the answer. I don't know if any of you have an idea.
¿Podrías repetir la pregunta?
So basically, llevamos todo el tiempo viendo que lo que es specific lo estamos viendo como simple past. Y entonces lo que es unspecific lo estamos viendo como present perfect. ¿Eso aplica para todas las oraciones? ¿O hay alguna que sea diferente? Like, si por ejemplo vemos esta. We know that this is unspecific porque no dice tiempo. Now, is this unspecific sentence also in the present perfect? Anyways, el punto es que sí. All of the ones that are specific are in the simple past, and all of the ones that are unspecific are in the present perfect. So, eso es algo que quiero que sigan captando, que sigan like cementing into your head, that unspecific is present perfect. Okay, let's go to exercise 24. Let's complete these sentences. Use the present perfect or the simple past form of the verbs in parentheses. So vamos a usar o present perfect or simple past. 1. Have you ever been to Singapore? Yes, I have. I have been to Singapore several times. In fact, I was in Singapore last year. Okay. This is pretty simple, except there is an error here because el paréntesis dice be, but this is not a be verb. This should say has instead. Pero en este caso está bien, because we use the be verb here as been. Anyways, let's continue with number 2. Are you going to finish your work before you go to bed? I finished already. And basically, we're going to put this into the present perfect. So it says, I have already finished. I finished my work 2 hours ago. So we're basically using simple past and present perfect to complete these sentences. So there's sentence 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes so you guys can complete these answers. And then I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to ask you for the answers, okay? So take a couple of minutes to do it, and I'll be right here. Remember that this presentation, this PDF is available through Canvas, so you don't need to follow along with what I'm showing you. You can just, check it out for yourself. Okay. So let's do number 3. Have you ever eaten at Sunset Beach Cafe? Yes, I. You can, of course, turn on your microphones or write it in the chat. So what can we put here?
Have.
Exactly. Yes, I have. Let's continue. Eat.
I have eaten.
I have eaten. Yeah, what they say. Okay. I've eaten there many times. In fact, my wife and I.
Ate.
All righty. So let's take a look at the sentence. Have you ever eaten at Sunset Beach Cafe? Yes, I have. I have eaten there many times. In fact, my wife and I ate lunch there yesterday. So this is good. Si se fijan, we used, in this one, which is not specific, which just says many times, we used the perfect form. And then this one, which is specific, it tells us it was yesterday, we used the simple past form. Okay, let's continue. Do you and Erica want to go to the movie theater with us tonight? B, no thanks, we see already. We see last week. So how do we complete this?
Una pregunta, ahí se cambia el verbo a pasado, decía so.
Yes, en este caso sí. But what about this first blank? Recuerden que este está en simple past because this is specific. Dice last week. This one is not specific, so this one has to be present perfect.
Pues sería we already see it. O sea, así se quedaría uno.
Already seen, pero le faltaría algo.
Have.
We have.
There you go. Have already seen. Fantástico, muy bien. Number 5. When are you going to write your report for Mr. Berg? I write already.
I have read it already.
Okay, so you weren't sure about like how to conjugate this one, so lo dejé básicamente a mitad. So how do we conjugate this right? Do we use wrote? Do we write, written? Which one do we use?
Reading.
Exactly right. Have written already, or we could just put it at the end, have already written. It basically works both ways. So what about this one over here? It says I write.
Wrote.
There you go. Exactly right. Once again, nos dejamos llevar de specificity. This one says 2 days ago, so this is why this is simple past. And this one is not specific, which is why it is have already written. And yeah, we're pretty much done with time. Antonio have ever a job? So I'm giving you the first letter of each one, para ver si le facilita un poquito.
Have Antonio ever had? No.
Exactly right. Has Antonio ever had? Has Antonio ever had a job? Yes, he.
Had.
Had.
Do we use had? Do we use has? And do we ignore these? Okay. So one of these two.
Had.
Remember, this is the present perfect, okay? So si fuera past perfect, entonces pudiéramos decir yes, he had. But since this is the present, we use has. He has or have or had lots of part-time jobs.
Has had.
There you go. And last summer, this is specific, so this should be simple past. So last summer, he
Have.
Had.
Okay, so let's take a look at the sentence. Has Antonio ever had a job? Yes, he has. He has had lots of part-time jobs. Last summer, he had a job at his uncle's auto shop. So this is perfect. Let's continue. This is a good book. Would you like to read it when I'm finished? Thanks, but I read already.
I have
I have
already
re-
read it.
I've already read it. Exactly right. And unlucky. Okay. And finally, I read it a couple of months ago. Remember, this is specific, so this should be in the simple past. How do I put this word? Okay. Se dice read, but se escribe like read. It's one of those verbs que no cambia. So yes, this is a good book. Would you like to read it when I'm finished? Thanks, but I have already read it. I read it a couple of months ago. And finally, y con esto nos vamos. What African countries have you visited? Okay, this one, I visit Kenya and Ethiopia. ¿Quién me lo puede decir?
I have visited
Yes.
Kenya and Ethiopia.
Fantastic. What about the next one? I visit Kenya in 2002.
Visited.
And finally, be in Ethiopia last year. It's just a simple form, simple past be verb. Que era parte del bono en el examen. Sería
Was.
fantastic. So, what African countries have you visited? I have visited Kenya and Ethiopia. Y aquí usamos have visited because this is non-specific. I visited Kenya in 2002. Se dice específicamente el tiempo, so we use the simple form, simple past form. And igualmente, I was in Ethiopia last year. Se especifica el tiempo, so we use was. For our next class, we're going to continue from exercise 27, just a little game. Yo lo prepararé para el miércoles. Anyways, thank you guys for your time, your attention, for your understanding. I will try to finish grading those tests by today. If you have any questions, you can send me an email. I get my emails right on my phone, so cuando tengo un break, I just try to respond. Anyways, guys, thank you. I will be seeing you on Wednesday. Okay, Jose, have a nice day. Josue también, Soneidi, Jeremy. Okay. Lismari y Jeremy y Guillermo, have a nice day. Cuídense. Sanji. Okay. Angelo, Alondra, Genesis, Michelle, y Natalie. Okay. If you have any questions, just let me know. Si no, pues recuerdan que mi horas de oficina are now at 9:30. I'm gonna log into that now. I am gonna take a break for a minute. I'm gonna use the restroom, bathroom. That's my house. Okay. Okay, guys. So I'm gonna go. Voy a estar en el meet de mis office hours. And where's my marker? But I'm gonna go to the bathroom first. So I'm gonna write a message. I'll see you there.